So back to our topic, and that is actually a follow-up or a review somewhat of some sorts of a Time magazine article from April of 2010. Should schools bribe kids? And we're talking about a study that was done in 4 different major U.S. cities in 2007. And the cities were New York, Dallas, Washington, and Chicago.
Yes, and so how does this work again?
Well, they did each city actually did the study slightly differently.
Yeah, I'm looking, yeah.
So let me change your question around to, does it work?
Okay.
Does this work? So we're talking really specifically about paying kids in order to get some sort of better result in school. The short answer is, yeah, it does work. Yes, it actually does work. But it depends on the type of behavior that you reward. In 2 of the cities, actually, the conclusion would have been, no, it does not work. In the 2 other cities, it worked actually well. In 1 city, it worked remarkably well. And so if you look at the differences in these studies, that gives you a really good idea of what works and what doesn't work. So at the very least, doesn't matter if you believe in whether or not kids should be getting paid for better results in school or not, what you can get out of this is what approach got the best results in terms of what to focus on in terms of what the children should be doing. Right? In New York, where they did not get very good results at all, basically no change. See, the ultimate test was actually how the children would do on their standardized testing at the end of the year. Okay, that's really what they wanted to find out is, no matter if the children seem to be doing better in school, even if their grades were better, at the standardized test at the end of the year, was there an improvement? Right? In New York, there actually was not. I think the New York sample is a good idea of how not to try to reward your child. And what they did was they put the emphasis on better testing scores. In other words, children would get paid money if they received better testing scores. The problem was that the student didn't really have that much control over their testing scores. It's not something they could simply change. Right? Yeah. So actually what they found out when they started talking to the students is that they would have plans such as how can they score better on a test, not how they can study better or how they can comprehend anything better. They were trying to figure out how to basically ace the test in one way or another, so by thinking of methods such as, well, you can take more time reading the question more carefully, that kind of stuff. Not one child, and we're talking about 63 schools in New York, 63 schools, right, with 8,320 children involved. All right, that's not even counting the control group, because they made this quite a scientific survey that they had, half the kids actually did get this kind of bribe, the other half did not, so they can compare the 2 groups. Right? None of those 8,320 children had the idea of, hey, I could stay after class and ask my teacher some questions and get some help. Not one, 0. Okay, and that is even though they knew that they were going to get money if they were going to have better testing scores at the end of the year, right? And the theory on this is that the children probably simply didn't know how to achieve this goal. It wasn't as easy for them. They couldn't just simply change their mind and say, okay, I'm going to get a better testing score, right? They would have had to probably receive some more help in terms of what exactly can you do in order to do better throughout the year. Right? In Chicago, went a little better. They did 20 schools in Chicago with 4,396 students. And the rewards here were for better grades throughout the school year. They would get an A. They would get $50 if they got an A. They would get $35 if they got a B, and they would get $20 if they got a C. Which, by the way, if you think of the money involved in this, according to Time magazine, this actually was less money spent on any kind of a school reform than others that have been somewhat equally effective. So it's actually a relatively economical way to try to improve the school system. Now, what happened in Chicago, where the children were basically given the reward of money for better grades, A's, B's, or C's, right? What happened there was that the children did come to class more often. And also, they did do better with their grades. They got better grades throughout the school year. But they did not do better on the standardized tests at the end of the year. So that's another, I guess, point to shut this thing down, right? In other words, it's a good con argument. However, now if we go to Washington and Dallas, the picture was quite different. In Washington, what happened was that there were 17 schools with 3,495 children. The reward here was for 5 different criteria that the students had control over. Some of it were just simply behavior issues, like not getting in an argument or a fight with another child, for example.
Or
right?
attendance.
Attendance was a big one. And here what happened is that the students did do better on their reading comprehension, and they did do better on their standardized test at the end of the year. But the most remarkable results actually happened in Dallas. There were 17 schools with 1,780 students, so it was a smaller amount of students, no doubt. But it's still, close to 2,000 students. The reward here, and by the way, these were also younger students. One thing that makes the test a little bit difficult in terms of comparing one city to another was that the ages of the children were sometimes different. In Dallas, the city that had the best results for this, we're talking about second graders. And I think in New York it was, most of the other ones, they were more like 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. Okay. Well, in Dallas, the reward was for reading throughout the year. Because of only second graders, the monetary reward was much smaller. They got $2 for every book that they completed. And I believe the average of amount of books that each child was able to complete was 7 books throughout the entire year. Right? 7 additional books that they otherwise would not have read. And here, the test scores increased dramatically by the end of the year, and it was compared to the equivalent of an additional 3 months of schooling. So it was quite significant. And really, the reading comprehension also carried on to the next year, so it helped the children actually quite a bit. This was probably the most encouraging portion of this.
I think we have to take another break.
We
but
do
we're
already?
also going to have a guest, so you might have to continue this on our next show.
Okie dokie.
So you talked too much. No, just kidding.
I talked too much. Well, we're almost done with the subject anyhow, so we're pretty good.
So, we have to go on a
Yes.
break.
Okay.
And then I guess when we come back, we'll do the question of the day.
All right. When we come back.